They laughed because they thought you were lying. Now they're crying because it turns out you were just early. That's the kind of truth that burns them from the inside out. See, they never hated you because you were wrong. They hated you because you were right too soon. They mocked your vision, tried to silence your voice, twisted your name, and now they're choking on their own words. The people who swore you'd never be anything are now forced to sit front row and watch you become everything. This is no coincidence. This is justice. Poetic, surgical, and humiliating. Chosen one, someone just realized you were exactly who you said you were. And let me tell you, the humiliation they're feeling right now, it's not soft, it's not silent, it's loud, and it's eating them alive from the inside out. Their ego is having a funeral. Their pride is bleeding out. They finally see it. They misjudged the realest one they'll never get close to again. Before we go further, don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe. Help spread this message to more souls, because this ain't just entertainment, it's truth, and it's our responsibility to spread the light, even when the light hurts. Let's talk about this moment. This moment where the ones who tried to break you are secretly the ones being broken by your glow. They thought they were watching your downfall, but they were watching the prologue of your rise. You didn't fall off. You fell back so you could launch. You were never behind. You were just being hidden by the universe until your stage was ready. And now they can't unsee it. Your name, it's echoing in rooms you've never stepped in. Your image, it's haunting their thoughts when no one's around. Your truth? It's ripping through the lies they built like paper walls. The same people who tried to make you feel invisible are now afraid of how seen you are. They used to roll their eyes when you spoke. Now they hang on every word, hoping for crumbs. Because deep down, they know they missed something great, and they will never get another chance to hold it. This is the moment they realize your silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. You let them talk. You let them laugh. You let them bet against you, and you still won. That kind of win, it's spiritual. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And it hits harder than any comeback ever could. That's the kind of victory that doesn't need noise, because it haunts. You see, what's happening right now is deeper than regret. This is psychological torment, because you didn't just prove them wrong. You proved yourself right. You told them who you were, and now, without you lifting a single finger, life itself is proving you were never lying. They see it in your presence, they feel it in your absence, and they hate that they can't ignore it anymore. Somewhere right now, 3 different people are up at 2 a.m., scrolling through your old pictures, rewatching old conversations, replaying moments they thought they had control over. They don't even know each other, but they're all suffering from the same truth. You are who you said you were, and they're the fools who thought they were better than you. They compared your seed to someone else's harvest. And now that your tree has finally bloomed, all they can do is sit in the shade, choking on their own doubt. That's the thing about real ones. We don't argue, we don't chase, we don't beg to be understood. We become the evidence, and once the evidence shows up, the courtroom of public opinion shuts down. They're humiliated, not just because you're winning, but because they're losing to someone they tried to erase. You're the ghost in their guilt, the one they can't outrun, the face they see when they question their worth. That's not your ego talking, that's the truth walking in with heavy boots. And here's the kicker, the universe wanted them to doubt you. It was part of the test, because if they had seen your worth too early, they would have tried to cage it. So you had to walk through that fire alone. You had to be overlooked, underestimated, doubted, so your glow would blind them at full power. And that's what's happening now. You were the storm warning they ignored. Now the flood has arrived, and they're drowning in the very judgment they used against you. So let them talk behind closed doors. Let them pretend they're not watching. Let them act like your success doesn't sting. You don't need to prove anything. The proof is already moving through their nervous system. The proof is keeping them up at night. The proof is that deep pit of regret they're too ashamed to speak out loud. Let them sit in it, because you don't have time to babysit the emotions of people who tried to sabotage your soul. You've got a life to build, a legacy to protect, a future to walk into, and they're not invited. The truth always shows up, chosen one, and when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. It walks in like thunder, and you are the thunder. The one they heard in the distance and ignored, until the lightning struck right through the pride they used to laugh at you. Now they're not laughing, they're haunted. And you're finally free. So if this message has hit something deep in you, don't scroll just yet. Drop a 777 in the comments if you know you were doubted, disrespected, and dismissed. And now the truth is starting to hit them like a truck. And if you feel called to, bless the creators behind this message with a super thanks, because pulling these truths from the shadows takes time, energy, and spiritual fire. Whether it's $1 or a kind word, your support fuels this mission to awaken every soul that's been silenced. And now let's break it down step by step, because if you really are who you say you are, and they're finally feeling the weight of their mistake, then trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's get into it. Number 1, they went digging for dirt and dug their own grave instead. They didn't search for the truth. They searched for your failure, and when they couldn't find it, they panicked. That's the part they'll never say out loud. They set out on a mission to destroy you, not because you wronged them, not because you were dangerous, but because your existence threatened the little empire they built on lies, gossip, and fragile self-worth. They thought if they could just expose one weakness, one moment of inconsistency, one flaw, they could feel superior again. So they launched their little secret investigation behind your back. A full-blown obsession dressed up as curiosity. They didn't want the truth. They wanted ammo. But the universe, it had other plans. Chosen one, someone has been watching you in silence, obsessively, hoping they'd catch you slipping. They've been asking around, creating fake scenarios, pulling strings behind the curtain, testing your boundaries. They thought they were the puppet master. What they didn't realize is, the more they watched you, the more they saw themselves unravel. Because no matter how many layers they peeled back, they kept running into the same cold, terrifying fact. You are exactly who you said you were. That realization, it didn't humble them, it humiliated them. Understand this, people don't investigate what they believe is beneath them. They investigate what they fear is above them. They feared your integrity, your consistency, your growth, because deep down, they knew they couldn't fake what you naturally are. So they ran background checks on your energy. They put your name in the mouths of snakes, hoping someone, anyone, would co-sign their delusions. And all they found, silence, respect, or worse, admiration. Now they're sick with confusion, because the trap they set for you ended up exposing them. Every attempt to discredit you became a spotlight on their own insecurity. Every test they created only highlighted how real you were under pressure. You passed every scenario they designed for your downfall without even knowing you were being tested. And that's what stings. You didn't just survive the investigation, you shined through it, without reacting, without proving anything, without playing their game. And now they have to live with the fact that even in your most unaware moments, you were still authentic, still aligned, still untouchable. That's not just hard for them to accept. It's breaking them down psychologically because they've dedicated weeks, even months, trying to invalidate something that's simply unshakable. And here's what they don't realize yet. It wasn't just about you. This whole secret mission, it was a projection of their own internal war. They were hoping you'd fail so they could avoid facing the fact that they did. They wanted to prove that you were pretending, because they are. You mirror what they'll never admit. They're lost, performative, and desperate to be seen as real without doing the real work. And you are the work. You did the healing. You walk it, breathe it, are it. So now they're left in this quiet, crushing place where they know too much. They know they can't accuse you. They know they can't compete. They know they can't even copy you because what you carry can't be imitated. And they've already wasted so much energy trying to disprove what the universe itself has already confirmed. The worst part, they can't tell anyone how obsessed they were with trying to expose you, because even admitting how much they investigated you would expose them. They look crazy now. They look desperate. They look jealous. And that's a humiliation that doesn't go away easily. Let me tell you something real. They tried to reduce you to a rumor. They tried to shrink your legacy down to whispers in rooms you'll never enter. And what happened instead? Your presence grew. Your respect tripled. The very people they used to spy on you, secretly admire you, the ones they tried to turn against you, silently support you now. That's what happens when you walk in your truth. The universe starts speaking for you. So let them squirm in silence. Let them sit with the receipts they collected, the questions they asked, the games they played, because they didn't uncover your flaws. They uncovered their own limits. And now they're choking on the proof they never wanted to find. Their investigation wasn't just a waste of time, it was a full-blown ego death, because nothing terrifies a fraud more than the unshakable existence of someone real. That's you, chosen one. You're the standard they can't meet, the evidence they can't erase, the mirror they can't face. And now that they know, they can't unknow it. They can't unsee how poised you were under pressure, how real your energy stayed, how quiet your power felt, even when you didn't say a word. You weren't exposed, they were. You didn't fall, they did. You didn't lose control. They lost the illusion that they ever had any. And that's the ultimate humiliation. So remember this the next time you feel the eyes on you, the whispers, the setups, the shade. Don't flinch, don't fold. Because when people launch secret investigations into your character, it's not because you're hiding something, it's because they are. And now they're haunted by your truth. Every test you passed, every lie that failed, every moment you stayed solid when they hoped you'd crack. That's their legacy now, not yours. You've moved on. They're stuck in the ruins of their own obsession, and they'll never admit it out loud. But they know you are who you said you were, and now they wish they had believed you. Number 2. They needed you to be fake because the truth about you destroys the lies they live in. When someone's entire identity is built on illusion, the worst thing they can encounter is someone real. This was never about you, chosen one. Not really. You just became the mirror too sharp for them to look into without bleeding. This person wasn't simply watching you. They were clinging to the hope that you were faking it. Because if you turned out to be real, their entire performance crumbled, their whole self-image, crafted through filters, false confidence, shallow validation, would burn to ash. And you weren't playing a role, you were the role, authentically, effortlessly, without needing an audience. That's what terrified them. They weren't curious, they were threatened. Your existence poked a hole in their entire philosophy of life. They convinced themselves that everyone was wearing a mask, everyone was performing, everyone had a hidden agenda. But then you walked in, calm, clear, whole, and suddenly they weren't comfortable anymore. Because if you're not faking it, then what does that make them? Every trap they set was not a challenge. It was a cry for confirmation. Please slip, please fall, please reveal that you're just like me. But you didn't. You walked through the fire without even noticing it was meant to burn you. You handled moral dilemmas with grace. You spoke the truth without ego. You offered kindness where they would have chosen revenge, and you didn't even know they were testing you. That's the part that shattered them the most. You didn't pass their tests because you were trying to impress them. You passed because it's just who you are. You're not acting righteous. You are righteous. You're not pretending to be grounded. You've done the work. That's why their entire emotional structure is collapsing right now. Because you didn't dismantle their worldview. Your truth did. Imagine being so committed to a fake image of yourself that someone else's natural light feels like a personal attack. That's what's happening to them. Every step you take in alignment exposes the steps they've taken out of fear. Every honest word you speak cuts through the lies they told to survive. You are not just a person to them anymore. You are proof. Proof that it's possible to live with integrity. Proof that masks aren't necessary. Proof that what they told themselves to sleep at night was a lie. And now they can't unsee it. They can't go back to the delusion. They can't pretend they didn't feel the difference when you entered the room. They can't ignore the fact that while they were performing for the crowd, you were performing for no one, and still got more respect. Let that sink in. You weren't even trying to prove anything, and they still lost. Because this was never about exposing you. It was about avoiding themselves, and they failed. Miserably. Number 3. They tried to expose you, but ended up exposing their own empty soul. The most violent breakdown doesn't happen in public. It happens in silence, when the lies you told yourself start screaming louder than you can hide. Chosen one, this is where it starts to get ugly for them, because this isn't just embarrassment anymore. It's identity collapse. What started as a quiet little investigation, a behind-the-scenes fact check of your character, has now spiraled into something they can't control. Obsession, mental exhaustion, emotional breakdown. You didn't just pass their tests, you shattered the illusion they were depending on. And now their entire mental house of cards is crumbling with no one left to blame but themselves. You have to understand what's happening here. They're not losing their cool because you lied. They're breaking down because you told the truth, over and over again. And now they can't unknow what they know about you. They've realized you weren't pretending. You weren't performing. You meant every word, every move, every boundary. And that truth is violently incompatible with the persona they've been hiding behind. The mask is cracking, and beneath it, there's nothing. They wanted to believe no one could really be that honest, that disciplined, that grounded, that whole. And when you walked in and embodied all of it without flinching, they didn't just feel threatened. They felt exposed, because your light didn't just shine, It revealed how fake their own confidence was. It showed how much of their life has been stitched together by fear, manipulation, and control. Your presence pulled the curtain back on their performance. And now they're spiraling because there's no script left to read from. Let me say it plain. They thought they were the main character in your story, the clever one, the righteous one, the one who saw through you. They told themselves they were protecting others from your act. But deep down, they were just trying to protect themselves from their own inadequacy. And now, they can't even recognize themselves in the mirror. The hero mask has slipped, and what's left is someone broken, bitter, and drowning in their own judgment. Every time they hear your name, something inside them twitches. Every time you level up, it feels like a personal attack on their ego. You didn't do anything to them. You just refused to shrink for them. And that simple act of self-respect, it shattered their whole damn fantasy. So now the collapse begins. Quietly, psychologically, they're pulling away from others, avoiding conversations, acting off. Because how do you admit to anyone that you've spent months trying to destroy someone, only to realize they were everything you're not? They can't. So instead, they collapse, alone, in the silence they once used against you, haunted by the proof that you were never the problem. Their reflection was. Number 4. They fell in love with your light, then cursed themselves for not owning their own. Some people don't hate you. They just hate how much they feel beneath you. They can't speak around you, not because you intimidate them with cruelty, but because you disarm them with presence. Chosen one, this second person isn't trying to ruin you like the first. They're not digging for dirt. They're staring at you like you're sunlight they can't touch without burning. But don't be fooled. This isn't admiration in its purest form. It's paralysis. They've placed you on a pedestal so high, they've convinced themselves they could never reach your level. And now they're drowning in their own inferiority complex. You didn't ask to be worshipped. You didn't even ask to be noticed, but the way you walk in truth, the way you carry yourself with grace, even when no one's watching, it triggers something deep in them. They see what you are and immediately feel the weight of what they are not. Every kind word from you sounds like poetry dipped in shame to them, because it reminds them of the goodness they abandoned in themselves a long time ago. This isn't a one-off situation. This is a psychological phenomenon that repeats across time. History has always had its chosen ones, and it has always had its silent admirers, frozen in awe, quietly imploding. Think of Maya Angelou's calm fire. Think of Malcolm X, who moved crowds with stillness and clarity. Think of Frida Kahlo, who turned pain into art while others hid their wounds. These people weren't just admired, they were put on altars, often by people who didn't believe they could ever reach the same level of spiritual and emotional honesty. That's what's happening here. You became a mirror, not of their potential, but of how far they've strayed from it. They've built a fantasy around you, not based on who you really are, but on the impossible ideal they've projected onto you. To them, you're the one who never breaks, the one who always knows what to say, the one who walks into a room and makes everything feel aligned. And because they can't see your scars, they assume you don't have any. They worship the surface and curse their own reflection. But here's the brutal truth. It's easier for them to believe you're untouchable than to believe they're capable of rising. Because if they admit that you're just human, just like them, then what's their excuse for still crawling? So instead of leveling up, they shrink. They stay quiet, they keep watching from the shadows, and they punish themselves for every word they never said, every moment they could have met you eye to eye, but didn't. They admire you, yes, but admiration without self-worth becomes self-inflicted torture, and they're drowning in it. Number 5. You were their safe place, but they still chose to sit in the fire. You didn't make them feel small, their own mind did. You just stood tall, and they weren't ready to rise with you. Chosen one, this part hurts the most, because this one wasn't your enemy. You never shamed them. You never outshined them to make them feel dim. You didn't use your strength as a sword. You used it as shelter. You spoke life into them when others ignored them. You made space for their presence, honored their story, even when they doubted their own worth. And yet, they still shrunk. The twisted irony. You were the only one who never made them feel beneath you, but their own story made them believe they were. You didn't talk down to them. You looked them in the eye. You encouraged their voice. You saw past the insecurity, past the awkwardness, past the comparison. But deep inside, they'd already written the narrative. I'm not enough. That belief didn't begin with you. It began in childhood, in past betrayals, in years of being overlooked, misunderstood, rejected. You just triggered the wound they never treated. And your kindness. It didn't heal them, it confused them, because how could someone as powerful as you see them, respect them, believe in them when they've never believed in themselves? So they retreated, not because you were cruel, but because you were too real. You became a contradiction to everything they were taught. You made them question the story they've clung to for survival, that love has to be earned, that worth has to be proven, that people only value what they can control. You broke that just by being. And now they're watching you handle chaos, betrayal, and lies from the investigator. They're seeing how you stand tall while being torn down, how you never bend your integrity, how you face darkness with poise. And something inside them is shifting. They're realizing maybe the problem wasn't them. Maybe the problem was me. It's subtle, but it's powerful. For the first time, they're starting to understand that your light wasn't a threat. It was a chance to rise, to heal, to believe in their own possibility. And maybe, just maybe, they missed it. Because they were too busy trying not to be exposed, when all you ever offered was to see them. You never made them feel small, but they chose to stay small. And now, the only thing haunting them is the truth that you never held them down. They held themselves back. Number 6. They were never afraid of you. They were afraid you'd see who they really are. Sometimes courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, show up anyway, even if your hands are shaking. This is where the silence breaks. Chosen one, the same person who once froze in your presence, who watched from the sidelines while battling the weight of their own unworthiness, is about to do something they never thought they could. They're going to speak. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not with eloquence, but with truth. And that changes everything, because their fear was never really about you. You weren't the threat, you were the mirror. Every time they looked at you, they didn't see arrogance, they saw clarity. They saw someone who had wrestled with the darkness and won. Someone who stood in their own light and didn't apologize for it. And for someone who's been hiding from themselves for years, that kind of authenticity feels like a spotlight. Blinding, exposing, intense. But now, something inside them is shifting. They're starting to understand that your presence didn't shrink them. It invited them. Your power didn't belittle them. It challenged them to remember their own. And that realization is louder than their fear now. It's louder than the voices in their head that told them to stay quiet, to stay small, to stay hidden. So they're going to step forward. Maybe it'll be a text, maybe a quiet word, maybe just a look that says, "I see you and I'm done hiding from myself." But it's coming, and when it does, it won't be about winning your approval. It won't be about impressing you. It will be about reclaiming a piece of themselves that they abandoned a long time ago. Because here's what they've finally understood. They weren't paralyzed by your greatness. They were imprisoned by their own disbelief in their worth. And the only way to break free was to stop running from the reflection and face it. You won't need to applaud. You won't need to fix them. All you'll need to do is recognize the moment for what it is. Not a confession, not a request, but a resurrection. A personal rebellion against every lie that told them they weren't enough. And in that moment, for the first time in their life, they won't be afraid of being seen. They'll be afraid of missing the chance to be real. Number 7, they built walls so high, then you walked through them like air. Some people don't believe in anything, not because nothing is real, but because something real once broke them. And then there's the third one, the cynic, the one who never clapped, never congratulated, never said your name, but always knew it. This person doesn't wear hate on their sleeve. They wear doubt in their eyes. They've built their identity on mistrust, on a cold, calculated view of the world where everyone's playing a part and nothing is sacred. Love is manipulation. Kindness is strategy. And anyone who appears too genuine must be running some kind of game. That's how they survived. That's how they stayed safe. Until they saw you, and you didn't fit the mold. You weren't selling a story. You weren't asking for credit. You didn't need attention. You just were calm, consistent, real, unshakable. And that's when the glitch happened. The formula that kept them safe broke. They started watching, silently, sharply. At first, it was skepticism, waiting for you to slip, waiting for the mask to fall. But it didn't. Days passed, weeks passed. They saw people lie on your name, and you stayed solid. They saw you get tested, and you didn't fold. They saw others fake it for clout, while you moved in silence with results. And now, they don't know what to believe. Because for someone who built a fortress around their heart, you are the earthquake. You didn't climb over their walls, you walked through them, not with force, but with something they never accounted for. Integrity that didn't need an audience, grace that didn't ask for credit, power that didn't scream. And for someone who's seen everything done with an angle, your angle-less energy is driving them mad. They're asking questions they've buried for years. Could someone actually be like this? Are they pretending? What if I've been wrong this whole time? They won't tell you. They won't show it. But behind that blank stare, they're unraveling. Because if you're real, then maybe other things they've thrown away were real too. Maybe they've burned bridges that weren't traps. Maybe they've laughed at light just to feel strong in the dark. And now they're not sure who the fool is anymore. They won't confess, not yet. But every time they see you, something cracks. Another brick falls, and deep down, where the truth has no disguise, they're scared. Not of you, but of the fact that they might have missed the only real one that ever walked by. Number 8. You shattered their survival story, and now the whole room feels it. The truth doesn't just challenge a lie, it humiliates the liar who built their life on it. You weren't supposed to exist, not in their world, not in the cynical little ecosystem they built to survive disappointment. In their reality, people always want something. Everyone's playing an angle. Trust is weakness. Vulnerability is bait. That's how they kept themselves safe, expecting betrayal, staying guarded, assuming the worst in everyone so nothing could ever truly hurt them. But then you came in, quiet, composed, whole, not pretending, not performing, just being. You didn't make a scene, you didn't beg for attention, and somehow that made you louder than everyone else in the room. You weren't supposed to exist in their mental model. You broke the rules they lived by. You were the contradiction they couldn't control. And that shook them. They've spent years building emotional walls to keep people out, years collecting evidence that the world is full of liars, users, and cowards. But your life, your choices, your consistency under pressure, it doesn't fit the pattern. You are the glitch, the exception. The one that defies gravity while everyone else is sinking. And now, they can't look away. The investigator is losing control. The admirer is waking up. The cynic is quietly unraveling. And they don't even realize yet. They're not the only ones feeling it. Because your presence, your energy, your integrity is pulling the whole ecosystem into alignment. Mutual friends have started talking. Observers who once ignored you are paying closer attention. Even strangers sense something different. You're not forcing anything, but something about how you handled betrayal, admiration, and cold silence is creating ripple effects. You are gravity now. You didn't expose anyone directly, but the way you kept your hands clean while they played dirty, that exposed everyone. Without even trying, you've become the evidence people didn't know they were waiting for. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to point fingers. You let life do the talking. And life, oh, it's loud now. Because while they were watching you, the whole world started watching them. Their obsession with you has become obvious. Their inconsistencies are being seen. The masks are cracking. And you're just standing there, still, steady, unbothered. That's what breaks them the most. You were never supposed to survive their tests. You were never supposed to be real. And now, because you are, everything around them has changed. Number 9, they tried to tear you down, but built you a throne instead. The same spotlight they aimed to expose you ended up revealing your power. This was never supposed to happen. You weren't supposed to rise. You weren't supposed to be remembered. You weren't even supposed to be noticed. But now, all the scrutiny, all the whispers, all the attempts to test, question, and unravel you. They've done the exact opposite. They've turned you into a symbol, not because you fought for a stage, but because you embodied one. You didn't shout your truth. You lived it. And now people are paying attention, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. What's happening now is deeper than gossip. It's a recognition revolution. The investigator tried to destroy you. The admirer put you on a pedestal. The cynic doubted you from day one. And all three, in their own obsessive, misunderstood ways, have created a ripple effect around you that cannot be reversed. People are watching, not the version of you they distorted, but the real you, the calm in the chaos, the truth that never folded, the soul that didn't beg to be seen, but ended up being undeniable. And here's the part that will blow your mind. None of their behavior was really about you. Their projections were never personal. They were historical. The investigator, raised in a world where authenticity got punished, surrounded by lies, they learned early that anyone who seemed too honest must be hiding something. So when they saw your integrity, it wasn't inspiring. It was threatening. You became the trigger for a lifetime of betrayal. They weren't testing you. They were trying to protect themselves from their past. The admirer taught that love had to be earned, that perfection was the only key to worthiness. So when they saw you walking freely in your flaws, in your power, in your self-worth, they collapsed inside. You didn't make them feel unworthy, their upbringing did. You just reminded them what unchained confidence looks like. And the cynic, the one who sat silent in the corner, they were once deeply hopeful and just as deeply betrayed. They weren't born jaded, they were trained into it. They built a worldview on the assumption that nothing pure could survive. And then you showed up, untouched, unapologetic, real, and their entire survival logic started glitching. So yes, your presence triggered them all, but now it's doing something else. It's awakening people around them, because the story of how you were tested, watched, misjudged, and still stood is spreading, not by your hands, but by theirs. Their obsession with you created a signal they couldn't contain. And now, the very proof they tried to collect to discredit you has become your testimony. The same mouths that doubted you are now silent. The same eyes that watched you with suspicion now watch with curiosity. And the same people who tried to shrink you are witnessing your unshrinkable nature echo through every room you enter. Congratulations, chosen one. You didn't just survive their judgment, you converted it into recognition, and the whole world is watching now. Number 10. They set the final trap, and you walked through it without even looking down. When authenticity is your nature, not your tactic, you don't pass tests, you expose the tester. Chosen one, you've been holding up a mirror this entire time and didn't even know it. While they were scheming, doubting, analyzing your every move, you were just being. No performance, no playbook, no hidden agenda. You weren't trying to teach anyone anything. You were simply living in alignment. And somehow that, just that, has become the most dangerous force they've ever encountered. You've triggered change in ways lectures never could. You didn't argue, correct, or chase. You reflected. You became the quiet earthquake that shakes the soul awake. Because nothing hits harder than the realization that someone else is walking in the truth you keep telling yourself doesn't exist. That someone else is free while you're still pretending not to be in chains. You were never trying to expose anyone, but that's exactly what you did. Not through confrontation, but through contrast. While they were drowning in overthinking, you were flowing in alignment. While they were designing the next test, you were already living in the answers. And now comes the final one. The investigator is back, one last time, armed with a setup they believe no one could resist. A subtle manipulation, a high-stakes moment, a tempting offer that would make anyone bend just a little, for the sake of recognition, power, or gain. They're not doing it out of curiosity anymore. They're doing it out of desperation. They need you to fail, because your consistency has left them no cracks to crawl through. So they craft this moment like a movie scene, certain this will be the one. They're watching, they're waiting, holding their breath, hoping this is finally the day you trade truth for attention, purpose for performance, integrity for influence. But then you don't. You don't even flinch. You don't blink. You pass the test, not dramatically, not defiantly, but naturally, like it wasn't even a decision. And that's what guts them the most. You didn't resist temptation. You weren't tempted in the first place. Because your values, they're not part of a strategy. They're the core of your being. You don't perform principles. You are the principle. And in that moment, the entire narrative collapses. Because when you pass a test you never knew existed, the only one exposed is the one who set it. Number 11. They wanted to unmask you, but ended up stripped naked by the truth. It's not your success that destroys them. It's the quiet realization that you had the courage to live free while they chose fear. And now it breaks. Right there, in the silence they tried to weaponize, in the shadows they used to hide behind, it all crashes down. The investigator, the one who spent months trying to dismantle you, reaches their breaking point. Not because you fought back, not because you embarrassed them, but because you never needed to. The collapse isn't external, it's internal. Their ego folds in on itself like a dying star. They realize that all their efforts, all their tests, all their whispered suspicions didn't reveal anything about you, but revealed everything about them. They were never hunting for truth. They were trying to project their fears onto someone who didn't carry them. They were never trying to uncover a lie. They were trying to justify the one they live in. And now, there's no one left to fool, not even themselves. The shame they feel isn't just that they were wrong. It's deeper than that. It's the haunting gut-punch realization that while you lived in truth, they clung to performance. You moved with clarity while they hid behind confusion. You stood alone while they sought approval. You lived free while they chose the cage. And everyone sees it now. The collapse isn't quiet anymore. It echoes, it ripples, it shifts the air around you. People are talking, but this time, not in doubt, in reverence. The story's changing, the energy's turning. That once silent admirer. She's finding her voice now, watching the strongest man in the room crumble after trying to test someone he couldn't understand. That hardened cynic. He's blinking for the first time in years, wondering if maybe hope isn't foolish after all. Because when the one who doubted you the most breaks first, everyone listens, and they're watching you, not because you asked for it, but because you've become undeniable. Your vindication isn't a headline, it's a movement. Your name is now being spoken with a different tone. Not skepticism, not curiosity, respect. This isn't a victory lap. This is a repositioning. You didn't just survive the attacks. You didn't just outlast the doubt. You became the quiet revolution in the room. And now, even the air around you feels different. People stand straighter, speak softer, watch closer. Because you're not just being noticed anymore, you're being followed. Number 12. They tried to rewrite your story. Now they're asking you to help rewrite theirs. First, they watched you. Then they tested you. Now they're coming to you for direction. It always comes full circle. The same voices that once doubted you are trembling now, not with power, but with humility. The investigator who set traps, spread doubt, and wove lies into conversations like spiderwebs is standing before you with lowered eyes and a shaky voice. They confess it all, not to shame themselves, but because something in them knows if they're ever going to rebuild what they've destroyed inside, it starts with truth. And you are the most undeniable embodiment of it they've ever seen. They tell you everything, the reasons, the trauma, the fear. They admit that it was never about you. It was about their fight with reality. And now, after watching you pass every trial with poise and stillness, they're not here to challenge you, they're here to learn. The admirer follows behind, finally cracking open that aching heart they kept wrapped in shame. They speak slowly, unsure if you'll laugh or walk away. But you don't. Because you see it now, their silence wasn't rejection. It was reverence soaked in insecurity. And now that the floodgates are open, they tell you how much you taught them just by being yourself. No speeches, no performance, just presence. You were the first example of self-worth they didn't have to chase, and they're ready to stop running from themselves. And then the cynic, the one who stood in the back, arms crossed, eyes cold, the one who said nothing but saw everything. They come forward too, not with flattery, but with respect. They don't want your approval, they want your guidance. They've realized that all their suspicion never protected them, it only starved them. And now they're asking, quietly, humbly, if you'd show them how to live without the armor, without the mask, without the fear. And here you are, the chosen one, not the outsider, not the target, but the example. How you respond now matters, not just for you, but for them. You don't owe them anything. You could walk away, you could set boundaries, you could offer grace. But whatever you do, one thing is clear. The way you carry this moment will ripple out into how others define authenticity. Because now you're not just someone they tested, you're someone they trust, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Number 13, they tried to break you, but you were being built the whole time. You weren't just tested, you were tempered, and now everything that was against you is moving in your favor. It all flips. The investigator, the one who spent months trying to discredit you, is now your loudest voice in rooms you've never entered. They speak your name with conviction, not guilt. They tell the story of your strength, your composure, your truth, not because they were told to, but because they watched it happen. What started as a mission to expose you has turned into a purpose to protect you, because once someone sees the truth up close, they can never go back to pretending. The admirer, no longer frozen, no longer silent, they walk taller now, something in them unlocked. What you showed them, without trying, was that real self-worth doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being honest. And now they radiate the very thing they once thought only you could carry. They're no longer watching from the sidelines. They're walking beside you, not as a shadow, but as their own light. And the cynic? They've started the long, quiet journey toward connection. The one path they swore they'd never take. They speak softer now. They ask better questions. They admit they were wrong, not just about you, but about everything. The ice around their spirit is melting, and they're learning how to trust, not because the world changed, but because you changed something inside them. And the world is watching all of it, not as drama, but as proof. Proof that integrity still exists, that consistency still matters, that you don't have to sell your soul to be seen. You just have to stand in it. Doors swing open now. Opportunities you didn't even know existed start appearing like they were waiting for you to arrive. Not because you forced your way in, but because you aligned, because you stayed centered while everything around you spun in chaos, because you chose patience over performance, depth over noise, truth over tactics. And here's the wild part. You thought the pain was punishment. You thought the isolation was rejection. But all along, it was preparation. You weren't being tested to break. You were being forged into something unshakable. Now you see it clearly. The betrayals built your discernment. The silence sharpened your voice. The pressure revealed your name. You weren't just surviving your story. You were becoming the reason others rewrite theirs. Number 14. You didn't just survive the fire. You became the flame. Everyone follows. Some rise to fame, others rise to truth. You did both, without chasing either. Chosen one, it was never just about you. What you endured, what you walked through, what tried to break you was never just your burden. It was your becoming. You were never meant to just be seen. You were meant to be understood. You are not just a person who survived false judgment, betrayal, silence, and obsession. You are the living proof that staying true to who you are is still the most powerful force on this planet. You didn't just win a battle, you shifted the energy in the room. You reset the frequency of what leadership looks like, what strength looks like, what real looks like. They tried to humiliate you. They tried to reduce you to whispers and rumors. But all they did was burn away everything around you that wasn't real. And now, the ashes are still falling, but you're rising. Taller, sharper, clearer, and the recognition you're receiving. It's not about applause or titles or clout. It's about clarity. People finally see what they were blind to before. That goodness isn't weakness, and loyalty isn't foolish. That integrity isn't some outdated fairy tale. It wins, even when it bleeds. The humiliation they hoped would humble you, it purified you. It carved away the fake friends, the masked supporters, the opportunists who smiled but never truly saw you. It forced everyone, including you, to see who was who. And now that the fog has lifted, no one can pretend anymore. You're not just admired now, you're studied. Your calm is analyzed. Your moves are watched. Not because you chased status, but because you embodied substance. You didn't get here by pushing, you got here by aligning. And alignment creates momentum that no enemy can sabotage. That's why doors are opening. That's why energy is shifting, because you became the proof that we all needed to see. And the best part, you didn't do any of this to be special. You didn't chase the light. You simply refused to dim yours. And that is what makes you special. You can't go back now, neither can they. The old games won't work. The masks won't fit. The silence won't protect them anymore. The universe has already decided who you are. And now the world is catching up. You are not a story. You are not a headline. You are a living confirmation that authenticity is a weapon. And baby, you wore it well. And now the revolution begins, not of noise, but of truth. You didn't chase a throne, but you became one. In a world starving for realness, your life is the blueprint. Your rise is the signal. Everything false is fading in your presence because authenticity has returned. And you, chosen one, are leading the charge. If this message spoke to your soul, don't just watch, respond. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop the number 77 in the comments to declare, I choose truth over performance. And don't forget to share this with someone still hiding their light. The revolution is already in motion.